Okay, so what are we going to do in these 4 sessions? As Vilma has explained to you, in the first session, we're going to set the context. We're going to talk about some of the factors which impact compensation. And then we go down to understanding the basic components of a compensation system. And and then we'll also talk about some parts of strategy there. Huh? And then the fundamental principle of equity theory. That's what we are going to do, which will set the context for the next 3 sessions. In the second session, which is really the heart of the program, we're going to understand uh, how do we establish, or when I say how do we, how organization, because you are all representatives of the organization, and so how do organizations establish this internal equity, which is called internal fairness. Okay, so we would be doing all about the techniques of job evaluation, and especially hands-on doing point rating method, job grading method, and how do you really predict salaries, how do you design the base salary. Thereafter, we will be talking about everything about external equity. That is, when you compare your salaries with the market. So, how do you do a benchmarking survey? How do you, first of all, identify positions? Then, if you get a salary data, that is benchmark data, how do you read that? Then, how do you position yourself? Where do you want to be? How do you actually start looking at, the entire restructuring of the salary? What are those elements of those salary range, salary grades, midpoint differentials, etc. That is what we are going to do in this, along with certain amount of compensation analytics as well. And then we will look at in the fourth designing the variable pay plans, which is all about individual equity. When two people are doing the same job, how do organizers ensure that they motivate and ensure that the people are doing, high performance? What is that? How do you actually incentivize high performers? So we'll talk about variable pay. We'll also talk about how do you do budgeting? Then how do you actually then design some of those performance parameters for your short-term incentives, long-term incentives, etc. So we're going to look at all of that. And in the end, we'll also give you some guidelines with regard to the reward programs. All right. So this is what is all about, trying to compress a lot of the entire CNB into these 4 sessions. There'll be a lot of reading you would be required to do after every session and before every session, so that your learning, is quick, because it's all technical. So unless and until you really come prepared with some amount of reading, you will not be able to follow a lot of things. Is that okay, guys? So I want all of you to be really, up to the mark every session. Go back and read. That's how you'll be able to remember what I have told you, and then come back with this session, for which you are coming with some amount of reading preparation, so that you are able to pick it up fast. All right? All great. All great.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, Let me just ask you one very simple question. Why? So there are so many participants, and why do you think compensation in today's times it's become really very critical, and everybody, wanting uh, to know about compensation as an employer and as an employee? Why do you think compensation is very critical?
Why? Because of that, in a compensation, we can see um, for a similar kind of technology expertise person, we are paying different CTC and restructuring the different CTC on the basis of their experience. In
Mm-hmm.
similar way,
Mm-hmm.
we can
Mm-hmm.
see that for the similar kind of experience, the other industry and a similar kind of like industry in the other companies are offering something else, due to which somewhere the resource, or you can say the manpower which is available in the market, they are getting more attractive to the organization. They
Mm-hmm.
are not going to be joined to the organization what exactly I am offering the CTC, right, or the compensation plan and all. So somewhere why it is important, we must be also keep on as per the market standard, so that if we are offering, there should be a like mean, and resource can understand that it is valuable for me.
Okay. So what you're trying to say is that yes, compensation is becoming very important, because to put it in very simple words, I need to attract, right? Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I also need to motivate him to work. Also, I need to retain. Simple, right? Right. Motivate, attract, retain. These are the three major things. So the compensation should be attractive enough that for all the talent acquisition people, there are quite a few here who are heading or doing that role. That am I able to attract the right kind of talent? Is my compensation able to attract them? And even if they come, are they able to uh, do their work, because continuously being motivated by what they're getting? And then am I able to retain them? Right? Anyone else? Yeah, that's how
I
you're
do
going
have
to
a
learn.
question. Like, every organization want to attract as per their compensation plan.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
motive is to how I can make a valuable or better incentive plan, so that can it's more attractive. Everyone is
Uh, I'll take one step.
analyst of market
Uh,
and get them
Okay.
with the organization.
Okay.
How we
Okay.
can do the
All
better?
right. Uh-huh.
hmm.
Okay. All right.
uh, should I add one point here? So
Yes, Manish. Huh.
the basic the basic purpose of compensation is to give the amount so that the employee could
Huh.
work. So basically,
Huh.
it's the reason for an employee to work at any organization from an employee perspective. From an
Hmm.
employee perspective, you have to
Hmm.
design in such a way that
Hmm.
they are competitive in the market to maintain the external equity so that the employee stays at the organization. Also, they also need to maintain an internal parity or internal equity so that the employee feels that, okay, I'm being paid fairly. So these are two very important things that the employer needs to keep in mind. For an employee perspective, of course, it's the
Mm-hmm.
main reason. After that, he or she thinks that, okay, if this
Hmm.
amount of compensation is motivating enough for me to stay with
Mm-hmm.
the, if he or
Mm-hmm.
she does enough motivated, he or she can look out in the market, then he or she gets to know that, okay, the price that I'm being paid for my services here are, okay, equitable, and probably as per the outside market benchmarking
Okay.
also.
Okay. Okay. Let me
Yeah.
let me put it
I'd
this
like
way.
to add
Let me
one
just
point.
let
Uh,
me actually elaborate. Yeah, we're getting some of the theory, but let me be on the ground.
can I add a point,
And
please?
yeah, yeah, please. Who is this?
It,
Yeah,
I'm
introduce
Arjun. Yeah,
Arjun.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yes, Arjun.
So
Huh.
it's the primary compensation is a primary parameter for employment. That's what
Okay.
we work
Okay.
for.
Uh-huh.
So it's important for a person to perceive that
Hmm.
the amount what he's getting in lieu of his extending his services is
Hmm.
is fair in all respects.
Okay. Okay.
That's why it
Okay.
is required.
So can I take it as what you're trying to say is, hey, for all the effort and the time and everything he puts in effort,
Yes.
is he getting a fair pay?
Is he getting
Okay.
fairly paid? Yes.
Right?
Other,
Fair pay. Right?
otherwise, there's
Is he
no
get
point in him continuing with
okay? So
any
that's
of
what you are saying. That's why compensation is becoming very important, because we are
important.
not able to retain people, attract people. At the end of it, the employee is saying, hey, am I getting a fair pay for the effort, for the time, everything I'm giving? All right.
In his
Let me
perception.
just
I
okay.
have a point.
Okay.
This is Sushma here. So
Yeah, Sushma.
compensation also helps like for an individual to align their performance with an organizational goal. So
Okay.
it gives a sense of like a purpose and an achievement that I am
Mm-hmm.
doing X amount of work, and that is how the organization is benefiting like this. And you, as a
Mm-hmm.
compensation, you can align that performance to your organizational goals and motivate it. It's a point of motivating, but it basically gives a sense of achievement and purpose to the employees also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 So you're linking up performance of individual performance with the organizational goals. Okay. All right. Okay. Great. So would you say compensation, what I have actually designed maybe 2 decades ago or 10 or a decade ago for the organization, should be the same, should be continuing the same, should it be dynamic or should it be static?
It should be dynamic, is what I feel.
Should be dynamic.
Yes.
The organization has to
Okay.
stay
So somebody is saying it should be dynamic. All right. Okay. So let us actually open up a good discussion. So just to give, give you that context in terms of why is compensation so important and why should it be dynamic? So there are certain factors which are impacting compensation, right? There are
Yes.
many factors which impact compensation. So if we were to look at just the external factors which are going to impact compensation, what do you think they could be?
Majorly taxations.
Market inflation,
External factors impacting compensation.
Basically, economic environment, the government's
Pardon?
economic environment, industrial, and the kind of demand in the industry, and government
Okay.
policies, basically.
Okay. So
Geographic
somebody is saying,
locations.
Minimum
can I
wage
say
rate.
government policy or can I say government compliance or regulations, government regulations, etc., or even statutory compliance? So I'll just
Yes.
put it as regulations. Okay, that is very key. All right.
Geographical
Then
location.
geographical location. Yes. Okay.
Competitiveness in the market.
Competitiveness in the market, right? Competitors.
Absolutely. Okay. How competitiveness?
The demographics of the location itself, the demographics of the people from where you're hiring it.
Demographics. Okay.
available skill resource,
Available skill, yeah. If at all there are certain skills which are niche in the market.
niche and resource available.
Availability of talent, right? Required
Technology.
talent.
Yeah, correct.
Technology.
Economic conditions also.
Yeah. Excellent. All of you have really, Any other key
Expectations.
external factors which,
Expectations, the expectations of a candidate also, is that a
expectations? Okay. Yeah.
like what does the candidate or what does the candidate himself expect for that particular role?
Just based on the
Technology.
expectation, the salary cannot be offered.
No,
So-
but it becomes a key factor for the company as well, right? Like if
Well, I'm
it's not
keeping it
just
there,
one
passing it,
candidate,
okay?
but if there
You
are
can-
10 candidates who are all saying
excellent.
that they want 15 lakhs, then maybe the
Yes,
company
from
has to
a
relook.
selector's
Okay.
perspective, see, if I'm
All
the
right.
interviewer, so I would always see that what kind of talent is, available in the market. So
Okay.
basically it's a, it's a expectation as
Demand
well as
and supply of talent, I'm
talent.
trying
Yeah,
to say,
yeah, of
Manish.
course, of course.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It comes
All
to
right.
that.
Okay. Somebody said very interesting technology. Right?
Technology, yes. During COVID.
Can I also add along with
major.
it? I would always normally say globalization and technology, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Then what else? Diversity.
I think that comes under demographics.
You
Like
can add it as demographics. You can, so just to bring it a little more diversity. All right. Okay. So these are some of the external factors which are impacting our compensation. Okay. All right. What could be some of the internal factors? We will discuss in detail. Some of the, just wanting to pick your brains. some of the internal factors you think which are impacting compensation?
The strategy.
Company's performance.
Strategy. Yes. Somebody said company's performance because obviously affordability is dependent on company's performance,
Yes,
right?
affordability.
Huh? How much you can pay?
The pay policy or the reward pay philosophy.
Your pay philosophy, right? Yeah. Also, do you think this,
The level of
you know,
skill
traditional hierarchies, earlier on you would have organizational structures which were steep, bureaucratic with many levels, narrow banding, etc. And today, speed is the essence. On-spot decision making, people are highly empowered. So there is this, traditional hierarchies are also breaking down. Different structures are coming up, right? Job mobility, that also is one of the factors.
Yes.
Okay. So
And-
we are going to look at first, okay, somebody was wanting to mention something. Yeah.
So is there a consideration of compulsion to retain the niche skill talent?
I was not able to hear. I missed out something. Yeah. Can you please repeat? You were mentioning something.
Is there a compulsion of retaining niche skill talent in an organization with premiums package something?
We're coming to that. We will. So you are now getting into, that if I have a premium skill, how do organizations compensate, etc. Right?
The level of
Have I
the
got you right? Huh?
Yeah,
Pardon?
correct.
Huh? Yeah, we will come to that. So this is, we're just trying to look at what are some of the factors which are actually impacting compensation.
One majorly point it should be added here also, the financial stability of the company as well as a business or a client dependence is always depends because we do have a market competitors. So if we can take example like in a Capgemini, Cognizant, TCS, Infosys are working for a
Yes.
similar kind of clients. So
Right.
every organizations are quoting the rate on the basis of getting the business in. So definitely in somewhere they are quoting low than TCS, low than Capgemini so that they are getting a business. So they are able to pay as accordingly. Then they are unable to pay the CTC such as expected by the any resources. That's why somewhere if TCS offering more than Capgemini, definitely the person will go to the TCS. If someone like Capgemini is offering more than Cognizant, then definitely the person will go to the Capgemini. So this is also
Right.
internal factors of the any organization.
Yeah, internal factors. But I will definitely. What you're saying is that if my margins are more and or my margin, if I'm quoting less for my services, and so therefore the wage cost comes down. If I'm going to pay less to my people, so we'll just park that. The logic behind it. Why do we lose people? Then actually organizations, can they do that? How do they actually pay people? We'll look at that. The strategy of designing compensation systems, all right, because it is not something one size fits all. So obviously they differ in their strategies, in their philosophies. So how do they design their own structures? Because every organization has to survive. So what are some of the factors based on which they design those compensation structures? Okay, we'll come to that. We'll just park that, and definitely you can remind me a little later. Okay, so well, which is very, very important. So I'm actually emphasizing on these external factors right at the beginning. So when we look at some of the external factors which actually impact compensation, yes, some of the key ones you have already mentioned a lot. So one of the key factor is regulatory, right? So here there are many people who have already done statutory compliance, etc. So what are some of the key statutory compliances with regard to wages you think every organization needs to comply?
Minimum wages?
Yep.
PS,
Yeah.
ESIC,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
ELWS.
Payment of
Okay.
bonus
Okay.
and
One
all
second.
it's like PSIC.
Gratuity
Yeah.
bonus.
So somebody said minimum wages, right? Okay. So what does it mean, minimum wages? What does it? So what kind of a compliance is it, minimum wages? That means you're required to payment by the Payment of Minimum Wages Act. There are so many people who have done compliances here.
So in a particular location, you can't go beyond a certain amount of pay for
Yes.
Yeah.
fine bills.
Yes.
So
So when
No,
you
no,
are
no.
actually,
Sorry, I would like to
yeah,
make
yeah,
it correct
I'm
here.
coming to that.
The minimum wage is not beyond that, but somewhere it's a
Below that.
fixation by the like in a government where we cannot pay below than that.
Below the minimum wages.
Right.
So
Beyond we can
why?
pay.
Yeah. So therefore, when we are talking about Payment of Minimum Wages Act, what does it comply with? Depending on skill. So there are certain criterias. What is that?
Zones,
Skill,
location.
no?
Yes,
Yes,
Semi-skilled,
Skills and
huh?
unskilled.
Skilled. Then there is location, or you can say state.
Yes, state.
Then there is industry,
Hmm.
And the role.
Qualification is
And
also
the role.
there.
Role of the job.
right? Huh?
Qualification is
So,
also there.
and
role-
also,
Qualification.
Type of nature of job.
yeah, nature of job. Because even that skill, whatever it is. So there is so based on these four criteria, there is a certain amount of wages which you have to pay, minimum wages. Okay. Below which you cannot pay, because you are otherwise, by having this act, you are ensuring that the employer does not exploit. Right? So that is payment of minimum. Then what else?
Protections in
Provident
terms of
fund.
insurance, health insurance, accidental insurance,
Yeah.
Yes. Health insurance.
accidental
Then
insurance, term insurance.
these are not
medical insurance.
Superannuation.
these are not
Then
regular compliance. It is yes.
no,
are-
no, superannuation, we will discuss on that. So if you notice, for wages, we have something called what?
Payment of wages. Full remuneration.
We have payment of wages, right? We have Equal Remuneration Act. We have Minimum Wages Act. All these acts are for what? Ensuring that you do not have discrimination, you are not exploiting, you are paying them by the currency, paying on time, ensuring all these things are done, right? And for protection, as a matter of fact, Social Security, we have these statutory acts which are Provident Fund, we have for what? Gratuity. So these are, is there a choice? We have to actually comply with all these acts. Okay. Likewise, you also have for USA, and there's a lot of reading given there for statutory compliances. Please just go through that. I'm not wanting to get into detail with this because we have a lot to cover on the compensation front. But yes, when it comes to compensation, laws are very, very important because you need to comply with them. And then you have something called the obviously tax. You have to be familiar with tax. So why that's essential for us to understand the tax as an HR person, especially with compensation benefits, because when you are doing the structuring of your components of a compensation system to ensure that the net salary is the maximum, so you need to have a combination in such a way that the employee takes home maximum amount of money and not gets deducted. Okay, we'll talk about it in some time to come. There's also this act called Apprenticeship Act. Anybody using that? Why do you use that? You also get subsidy. When you actually
Yes.
take people in as interns or apprentice, you can get subsidy from the government, especially in manufacturing organizations. A lot of organizations use this Apprenticeship Act to get a subsidy. Anybody using it here? Who's
Yes.
working in a manufacturing organization? Yeah.
Yes, Nirmala. In my
Arjun.
previous organization, we did use the NETAP scheme, which is now currently not active. Currently, in my present organization, we do use the NAP scheme
Okay.
under the
Okay.
Ministry of Skill Development. Yeah.
And then you also have certain acts which pay for time not worked. Like, for example, you have to pay the 6 months of maternity benefit. You have no choice. Then again, and all those holidays where they are national festival holidays, you have no choice but to pay. And if you ask them to come, you'll have to pay 2 days of salary. Okay. That is period for time not worked. And then pension, as per the Employee Pension Act. So there are some calculations I can send you. You'll get a handbook on statutory compliance where there are these details as to what is the criteria, how does it work, how do you calculate, etc. All right. Okay, guys. So now let's go on to the next one, which is also equally important, called the, in some of the organizations, you have unionized workforce. Then what happens typically? Then there is something called the trade unions. What do? They actually bargain and they go through a process called collective bargaining, where the collective bargaining holds good for the wages, right? Why does the employer also, it's a win-win kind of a situation. Rather than actually doing an individual consultation, negotiation with the 5,000 people or the 1,500, 2,000 workforce on the shop floor, he prefers to do a collective bargaining process with the entire union so that they then come to a settlement, which is called a wage settlement, maybe once in 2 years or once in 3 years. It helps. So collective bargaining process is also one of those processes which impacts compensation of the workers. Okay. Then we are also talking about, somebody said, demographic changes. It's an interesting thing in today's times because you have a diverse workforce. So what is happening in the demographic? What kind of changes are coming up in the demographics? Yeah. Anybody? I left that blank because I wanted you all to really talk on that. Today you are working with what?
Mostly the environment would change in industry now, that is work from home mode, or you can say the hybrid mode as well. So in a demographic where before, you can say 4 years, where any person is just very much compelled to come to any location from small location to like in a metro city. So I just give you an example. If somebody is in Lucknow and having good opportunity, just going to shift to the Bangalore due to like working, what the company is offering on the basis of that compensation. So the company is also offering the compensation on the based on metro city. But while the company is going to pay anyone who was living in Lucknow, but he will be on roll on the like a map in a Bangalore location, branch location, but he will be paid on the basis of Lucknow, because the company is giving work from home mode permanently. So somewhere that compensation will also impact on that aspects as well.
So we will look at that when we are doing actually technology. Because of technology, you are able to work from home, remote locations, and therefore you have that advantage, right?
Right.
But when you're looking at demographic changes, typically, look at this, people now. What I typically call it as the blended style, in the sense that earlier on, people, when your parents were working or etc., earlier on, what used to happen? People used to work for one organization, right? They would work for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. They would retire, right? But now what's happening? Now, typically what happens? People work for 2 years, right? The present force. They work for 2 years or 3 years. Then they go on a sabbatical. Then they go for higher studies. Then they come back again. All right. That's one option. Or some people are working in the morning, studying in the night. So they work while they are also studying. So there is something called what I say blended style. What does it mean? Work while you study, right? Or you work for some time, go on a sabbatical, or you want to do higher studies. So, how do organizations then align themselves to these aspirations of the present generation? What should they be doing? We're talking about benefits, etc. So, what should they be doing when you have a different
Isn't
kind of
demographics
workforce?
more about like the aging of the population? Do you have a more senior workforce or a much younger workforce, like that sort of a thing?
So, you'll have to look at what kind of a workforce, but how are you going to align the aspirations of your workforce? Will one size fit all benefit will
No, no, no. You
suit
have to,
everybody?
I mean, a senior workforce would be more looking at retirement or, sort of those sort of like benefits, or the
Exactly.
junior workforce is looking for multiplication of money, basically.
So, depending on your workforce, whether you have a young workforce or you have a diverse workforce where you have older ones, younger ones, so you have to look at what are the kind of aspirations. So, in today's times, organizations, what are they doing? They're also offering what kind of a, of course, flexi hours,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Then they're also offering what? Higher studies supporting, so that you don't have to actually leave and go for higher studies. They're also supporting what? Earlier on, okay, because of the COVID time, earlier on you had to come and work at a particular time. So you are having flexi hours and also of remote. You can go anywhere,
Remote
work
working.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Remote
Work
work.
from home.
Okay, work from home. Also work from home locations. So can you say, in other words, you are actually looking at trying to align with their needs so that they can see value in the way you are giving them benefits. Isn't that so? Right? Yeah. So you have to understand that today it is not one size fits all. You have to cater to the aspirations of diverse workforce. Because what you see as a value, a younger person may not see as a value with the older workforce. Say, for example, I'm going to give you retirement benefits, etc. Everything focused on retirement. But I'm a youngster here. 80% of your workforce is youngsters. So will they be motivated to join your organization? Huh? For example, Arjun is a person who is very motivated to keep on increasing his, certifications, etc. While Avinash says, "Hey, I'm a gym man. I want to be fitness." So, if I'm going to give a benefit of,
Hmm.
certifications for Avinash, you think he will see value in that?
No.
The other way around, if I give some benefit for Arjun, saying that, hey, you can get this certification, you can work on this project and get these more certifications, he'll be more motivated. So you need to cater in different way. So
Yeah.
can your compensation components be in such a way that there's a good mix to attract your
Yeah.
workforce? Okay. Yeah. So that is what we were looking at when we said, hey, demographics, how have they changed the compensation system? In fact, we'll be talking a lot more about it when we are going to talk about total rewards. Okay. So I'm just parking that. Okay. Of course, people said economic changes. So what do you do typically? If there's inflation, you add inflation to it, right? Huh? So that there is a balance, because you need to take into consideration the COLA, that is cost of living, and add the COLA factor to it. Okay. And obviously, demand and supply of talent or labor has an impact on compensation, because the availability of the certain skill sets which you are employing, if there is a shortage of supply of that for some time, then what do? It will have an impact on, in terms of, say, for example, any talent acquisition head here, I'm sure they would have noticed that suddenly, there is a huge demand for, say, a particular cloud computing or AI, today AI. Then what do? You also need those skill sets. Then what do you do typically? What do you do? Avinash, what will you do?
Internally, we will identify some employees and we will train
Yeah.
them, first of all, internally.
Train them, yes, absolutely. That is one method when we are coming. So
And we'll
whoever
make
is
triple
there on
T
the
train
bench,
the
you will
trainer.
train them. But
Yeah.
you need immediately, but then what will you do? It's a new skill you are wanting, and then it's there's a a huge demand for that. Then what will you do in terms of? So you have to recruit those people. So will you increase their compensation or no?
Yes.
Yes, for
Because
some
that
time,
role
obviously,
demands.
till you build a talent pipeline, you will definitely increase your
Is the
compensation. Yeah. So there will be an impact on compensation. Okay. So these are some of the economic changes we talked about. Globalization. What kind of an impact do you think globalization and automation and technology has on compensation? Anybody? Do you think technology and globalization have actually revolutionized the work, the way organizations are performing? Yeah. Do you think the business has become a global village? What are organizations doing? They are moving work to different parts of the world, right? Wherever you have what?
Lower cost.
Cost of labor is low, and also you have the skill set at lesser cost. That's what they are doing. And this is possible because of the technology. So technology actually has revolutionized the work. So in terms of job mobility, that is pushing a job from a high cost to a low cost is possible only because of the technology. So if you want to really reduce your wage cost and improve the salaries, what is that you can do in today's times? What kind of a strategy you will then have?
Will introduce latest technologies like automations.
You will absolutely, you will eliminate lower jobs, you will bring in more automation, right? Huh? So that your affordability to pay at the higher jobs is more. Let me just give you an example, and I'm sure everybody understands this, what had actually happened, because of technology, what has happened. Say, for example, earlier on, if there is a job in US, typically a software developer, huh? What is the kind of a salary one pays in US?
Maybe
Software
$70,000.
developer. Huh? What do you pay typically? Say
Maybe
around
$70,000 per year.
yeah, that's what I was approximately, right? 70,000. Sorry. Huh? $70,000 per year, right?
Right.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. But if you were to, so typically what are organizations doing? Then you're shifting this job, say for example, to India. What is the kind of a salary at which you can actually employ a software developer in India?
It starts from 3-4 lakhs per annum.
Absolutely. 3 to 4 lakhs. If you have many people looking for those software developers, you as an organization, you want, so you will increase it to 5 to 8 lakhs, right? And then, and still if there are shortage of supply and the demand is going up, you might at best increase it to 8 to 10 lakhs. But there is a point where after which you will say, hey, I cannot really increase the salary of this software developer. Why? Why do you think so? Any clue?
After a certain point of time, if it is getting expensive, then we might can buy and procure it from some other company which is already
No. So, yeah. So typically what happens when I'm actually shifting a job from, say, for example, a software developer to India, and somebody said 3 to lakhs or 3 to 4 lakhs you can get, or even if there is much more demand, I can increase it to 5 to 6. If there are many more mom and pop shops, I'll increase it to 8 and 10. But there's a level there up to which I can go. That point is called economic tripwire. So what is this meaning of economic tripwire? Any guesses? Any guesses for anybody?
It's a
Where it
point where
doesn't make
reward does not, the outcome does not justify the expenditure.
exactly where it does not make any economic sense to do that business. So typically what happens, there is a curve there where there is a stagnation point up to which you can actually increase the salary, after which you really cannot, because it does not make any business sense. The outcome does not appeal to do business. Okay. So even when you are actually shifting a job, when you are actually having job mobility, there are jobs up to which you can actually shift them, which is called today what we call it as outsourcing business. But then there is a point which is called economic tripwire to which you can do that. Beyond that, you really cannot. Okay. So this is globalization and technology's impact on compensation. So I'm just dealing with only 4 or 5 of those key factors which are impacting compensation. And one of the key factors is globalization and technology, which has a huge impact on compensation. Any questions thus far? So that we are going to the next module, which is very, very important and where we are actually getting down to the basics of compensation. Any questions thus far? All right. So how do we define compensation? What does compensation mean for us? Anybody? We discussed that earlier. Compensation means for all the time, effort, skill, whatever we get in terms of monetary and non-monetary is compensation. Okay. So let us look at the components of, which is very, very important before we actually get into the details of compensation system. Let us understand what are the components of a compensation system. Whiteboard. So typically when we talk about compensation system, we say direct pay and indirect. All right. What is it? Direct pay and indirect pay. Let me just deal with direct pay first, because this is where it's very important to understand the basics and then we carry on. So when we talk about direct pay, what is direct pay? Anybody? When we talk about direct pay, what is the direct pay?
The part which is being given in terms of pure money, that is direct
So
pay.
typically when we talk about direct pay, it's all to do with cash. Okay? It's all to do with monetary. All right. But you may say, hey, but pension we get after retirement, that is also cash, right? Gratuity I get. So anything which you get cash in maybe 2 to say 4 years or 3 years, because some of the stocks and some of the bonuses you get later, anything which you get within that kind of a time is all called direct pay. Okay. Why I want you all to understand this direct and indirect pay in detail, because the way the pay mix, the strategy of a compensation is dependent on how are you going to actually mix this pay mix, what kind of a proportion, what is your business strategy, is it aligned with this? Okay. So when we're talking about direct pay, the first and the foremost is what? A base salary. Base salary. Okay. What is a base salary? I'm sure everybody knows about it. What is the base salary? In your, when you get an appointment letter, base pay is anything which is guaranteed.
The fixed salary.
Okay. It's also called your fixed salary, which has no contingency in the sense that you get that salary Whether you perform, whether you don't perform, till the time you are there in the organization or you exit the organization. It is an assured. It is assured. Okay. How do you calculate base salary, base pay? This is where your internal equity comes. This is where we calculate through a process called what? What? Job evaluation. Okay. Through job evaluation, we evaluate the jobs, the worth of the jobs, and then we decide on the base salaries, which is a guaranteed. Next, when you are talking about direct pay, talk about variable pay. Right? What is variable pay?
Performance.
So when I get an office, when I get my appointment, they say, hey, 25 lakhs is your salary. So 20% is something fixed and 5 is variable pay. As the name suggests, it is variable. It is contingent on something, right? Variable pay is contingent on something. Now, your variable pay can be contingent on what all factors? Somebody said something. Yeah.
Individual
What is it?
performance, team performance, business unit performance,
It could be your
company performance.
Performance, right? Which is purely called performance
Linked
pay,
Yeah.
right? Which is also called performance pay. Now we have an entire session on incentives, etc. Okay. So performance pay, as the name suggests, that means higher you perform, you get higher amount. And you don't perform, so there are predetermined targets. So a typical classic example is what? A salesman's commission. Huh?
Sales team, yeah.
Sales commission. How does this guy get this sales commission? How does it work? Anybody?
On how much sales he is making.
Based on the targets defined.
Based on the target defined. Okay.
Target
He gets
achievement.
Target
okay.
achievement.
So you are talking about a target, right?
Yeah.
Is this target predetermined?
Yes.
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 It's a predetermined. That means you determine how much you will get for how much you will achieve. So there is a target and there is also a percentage of incentive, right? So therefore, for a sales guy, if he knows that I'm going to get this much commission if I sell a Maruti or if I sell a Toyota, so it motivates him. So do performance pays or an incentive scheme motivate the person? They motivate. So typically when you have these variable pays, they're essentially what? They are there for motivating. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
Huh?
Motivating and driving high performance.
So how do you drive high performance? If you get more money for working more. So how do you actually then say, hey, he is a high performer? Because you will have a criteria saying that if you perform so much, you will get so much, right? So that's how. But base pay is essentially for what?
For everyone.
For attracting. Okay. I come, but I'm getting high pay. So I typically use variable pay to motivate. Now, in variable pay, performance pay can be at a what? Individual level, somebody said, right?
Yeah.
It can also be at a
Team
level. It can also be at a
organization
level.
organization level. Good. When you talk about a team, there could be things like in a manufacturing. I'm sure everybody has heard of it. Gain sharing. Who works in a manufacturing organization here? Have you heard of this term called gain sharing? Anybody? Yes, no? Huh?
No
Arjun?
idea.
No.
No? No idea? Okay. Gain sharing is a variable pay which pertains typically to a team. It's a team award. So, and this is mostly in manufacturing organizations. Essentially, why do you have this? You have it so that people collaborate. Say, for example, there is a unit, okay, manufacturing unit in a particular location. Now, you want to increase on a month on month the productivity at an operation level. Okay, and also certain kind of predetermined targets like reducing of inventory, so that they don't, the quality is better, time, etc. So there are certain kind of indexes and metrics. Now, when you increase your productivity within the resources and with not increasing your what is it material within the given material, so that your costs are low, then you have actually achieved certain kind of a what gains. Now these gains are shared with the team, so it's called gain sharing. In most of the organizations, in manufacturing organizations, you have gain sharing as a very a huge what is it variable pay, so that teams collaborate and make use of this gain sharing award or the bonus, so that they are able to increase the productivity. Now there is some kind of a productivity which, looking at the pattern of year on year, so you will have the optimum or the target for which you fix the target, and then over and above the target, then you are sharing the gains within the team. This is called gain sharing. It's at an operational level. At an organizational level, you have something called profit sharing. Now, profit sharing is different from gain sharing. Any guess? Any guesses? Any guesses? Profit sharing happens at the year end. Okay.
Yeah.
I've done very well this year, organization. So I'll say, hey, 5% of the thing we want to share across all levels. So you give them. Next year, I have not done anything, no profit sharing. After 2 years, again, I've done. So you can't actually predict how much you're going to share. Profit sharing. Okay. And gain sharing is at an operational level. Profit sharing is at an annual level. After the books have been balanced, after you have come to this, that, oh, we have made this much of profit, and then on the EBITDA, then you are declaring, okay, fine, we're going to share the profits. So have you understood the difference between gain sharing and profit sharing, guys? Very important to understand these terms. Okay. Yes or no? Just give me a thumbs up, please.
Yes.
So we are going to talk about more of the incentive plans in a session 3. So I'm not going to get in detail, but one point I want to drive here. Okay. Now, when we are designing incentive plans, now the scope of different jobs in terms of making their variable pay differs. For example, a recruiter. I have designed an incentive plan for a recruiter. Okay. Now, typically, if I say for a recruiter, what all can I have criteria? He has positions, right? Number of positions. Say, for example, 20 positions. In 2 months' time, he has to close, right? So within that time, within the cost, so if you are able to close, then you are over and above, you may get you can actually have some kind of an incentive. Now, as opposed to a recruiter, a payroll guy. Can you design an incentive plan for him? Can you say that, for recruiter also, I'm going to have 10% of his salary as variable pay, and a payroll guy also 10% of salary? Is there scope for a payroll guy to make more? Is there scope for in his job to actually increase his performance?
No.
Actually, ma'am, I do have one query, right, related to incentive actually.
No.
Whenever,
First, yeah, I will
yeah,
okay.
whenever we are
Yeah.
going to design some incentive plan to anyone. Like I would take as a first example of a recruiter, because I do have some confusion here only. If I have an recruiter and I have given him position to close 10 positions in like 2 months, there is some
Right.
deadline. So
Right.
so we can say the KPI also. So if he close the position in like 60 days, and if his salary is 50,000 per month, fixed salary, there's a 50,000 per month.
Okay. Okay.
What the base of ours, so that we can plan incentive for him or her,
Mm.
and how we can do that?
No, no, no. Can you just repeat your question? Are you talking about how do I plan, or how much should I have as a base salary so that I can design this incentive plan?
Yeah, because organization will say that it would be, if already we are paying 50,000, and if you are going to plan an incentive for the recruiter, although if he would be close the position within 60 days or like in 90 days as well, that will be going to the extra recruitment cost for a one position.
Surely. So here is it. You're asking two questions here. One is, how do I establish internal equity for a recruiter? How do I actually establish the worth of that recruiter, and how do I pay base salary? Right? Which we are going to actually explain. We're going to do job evaluation where we are going to actually do an exercise where how are we actually going to decide the base salaries, the worth of the jobs, which you said 50,000, right? Then how am I going to design an incentive plan? Okay.
Right, ma'am.
So these are two things. There are, one is about internal equity and the other is about individual equity. We're going to deal with them. All right. Okay. I'm just trying to build a context so that when we are going to go deep down, then you will not be surprised or you will find it difficult. Okay. So here, the intent here is to tell you that in an organization, I cannot actually have percentage of variable pay equal for everybody, because there are certain jobs where there's scope for making higher performance, but there are certain jobs like support where there's no scope. His job does not allow him for.
But ma'am, we can also have
Yeah.
like like these sort of this thing, right? Like timeliness. You make it by time. You prepare the payroll by time, or you have accuracy.
Accuracy.
Absolutely, I'm coming to that. So there are certain things for a payroll where you can say, in terms of he can't afford to actually make mistakes. So it has to be his accuracy. How many mistakes is he making? Otherwise, his help desk, payroll help desk at the end of the month, every month, he'll have a huge hue and cry, right?
Right.
Okay. So accuracy. So my point was that, say for example, I'll give you another example. Look at two salespeople. We're taking the point I'm wanting to drive, which is very, very important for later on. Two salespeople, okay? One is working for a very small grocery shop, all right? One salesperson is working for a grocery shop. Sorry. Now, where you have, how does the small grocery shop near any residential complexes, how will it have? It will just have, one or two people helping, right? Huh? Now, an average performer, huh, at a minimum performance, he can make 100 units. This is his minimum performance. Let me just say 100 units, huh? Minimum performance. And his maximum performance can be, say, about 300 units. This is his maximum performance. Okay. Say, for example, you have taken an insurance agent. He's also a sales guy, right? For an insurance business. Now, if his average performance minimum is 100 units, Now his maximum performance can be, a best performer can be 500 units. Why? For an insurance sales guy, there's huge scope. Are you getting me? Now I'm trying to give you a little bit of a small shop, a salesperson, the scope of work, even if he works very, very hard, he can make only 300 units. But whereas an insurance guy, if he performs very well, he can make 500 units. Now, if I have in his salary a fixed component of, say, for example, I'm just hypothetical, 70% fixed component. And I will say only 30% as variable. Okay. What happens? That means you're sealing the ability of this insurance guy that he can make more. No, in this business. So what happens is your compensation pay mix should be in such a way that I have what? Higher variable pay. So typically you will see in most of the sales organizations, you will have something like in the range of 60 to 65% fixed pay. Okay. And you will have higher variable pay. Something like a 40% variable pay. In some organizations, you can have even 50-50. Why do you think so? Because the nature of business is such that there is scope for selling more. So therefore, you'll have, for most of the salespeople, higher variable pay. Because if I give him most of it as fixed and I don't have a variable pay, his scope for selling is limited. So I'm trying to drive a very important point called performance elasticity. What does it mean? Please make a note, because when you're designing incentive pays, you have to understand, does this job have performance elasticity? Hey, are you with me? Have you understood this word called performance elasticity?
Yes.
Huh? Shushma, yeah, I can't see. I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
What
Yes,
about
yes,
others?
Yes,
Huh?
ma'am. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Arjun? Huh? So typically what happens when we design incentive pays, we don't look at jobs. So we cannot just hypothetically say, hey, I'm going to have this kind of a percentage of salary, percentage, of variable pay. So you will essentially see that the production people, the operation people will have what higher percentage of variable pay as opposed to support people, the HR or the finance, etc. Why? Because the job as such does not have the scope for earning more. Got it? Okay. So this is about so much about the performance pay. Then when we talk about variable pays, there is something called hardship allowance. Hardship allowance. It's a variable pay. Why do we give it and when do we give it? Two people, call center employees, one works in the daytime, one works in the nighttime.
If the employee
So should he get something they do the same job.
Night shift.
They do the same job. Should he get something over and above because he's coming at night?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we give as a night shift allowance, right? You may say, you may ask, but why can't I actually factor this in my base salary? What will happen if I factor that in my base salary?
If there is a change in shift, then unnecessarily a person will
You
get higher
cannot,
pay.
no, you cannot. If you have added it to the base salary, you have to continue giving it.
Correct.
It no more becomes variable,
Yeah.
right? So can you give me some examples of hardship allowances, guys?
Yeah, people working in difficult conditions or difficult
Absolutely. If you
different
look at,
hard
yes, yes,
geographic area.
oil and rig, mining, right? Higher altitude. Okay. So if two people are doing the same job, but one is doing something over and above what he is supposed to do, other he is working in hard conditions, or he is working more hours. Like for example, overtime. Is it a variable pay? Overtime? Because he's working extra
So there is
hours.
Extra.
Yes.
So this hardship allowance cannot be taken as something rightful, and it comes with your salary check. If you are there doing it, you get it. So it's contingent based on something. I'll give you a very interesting example. An accountant in a payroll, okay, he has to travel 50 kilometers, get the cash, disburse it at a certain location, and come back. There's another accountant who is working in the office. Now, should this accountant who is traveling get some money over and above what he is actually getting as a salary?
Yeah, something like
Yes.
travel allowance.
Travel
He has to
allowance or
get
conveyance allowance.
He has
And
to get
also the risk
some
also
travel
travel.
allowance, and also maybe if he is working extra hours, so something which substantiate for that difficulty, hardship. Okay.
And also
All
to
right.
compensate the fact that it's a risk to carry the cash and give it somewhere else. So
Absolutely. So this accountant is excellent. Now tell me, so should driver get a travel allowance?
no, that's his job.
That's his job. Are you now? Now are you getting the difference of when do you give hardship allowance, and when do you give,
Yes.
Driver's job is driving travel. So you can't say yes. If he's working extra hours, he gets an amount. So have you got that? When do you get a hardship allowance? When two individuals are doing, so you get that. All right. Now, the next thing is there is something called
Ma'am, I have a question.
Ah.
Where does the location allowance sit? I mean, would that also fall under hardship allowance? Like somebody's transferred from one location to another, it is subject to the person being there for few months. Once he goes back to his parent location, it stops. So where does
there are
that
two
sit?
ways. There are two ways of looking at it. If you're in an appointment order, it says that you can be posted anywhere, any location, right? There are certain orders where you write any location at any point of time. Then typically you cannot. But then it also says, yes, when you're shifted, you also get certain kind of allowances, settling down allowances, etc. Then you are given. And if it is not, if you are sent to some altitude or maybe a risky place or maybe a hazardous place, say Manipur, somewhere which is, then you definitely get some kind of a allowance.
Okay.
Ma'am, so in that
Or
case,
from a non-metro to a metro, you get a COLA,
Okay. Yes.
cost
ma'am,
of living.
just small clarification needed.
Yes,
See,
yes.
as you said, in our appointment letter, we have mentioned the conditions like your employment can be transferred to anywhere based on the business requirements. But in that case also, we are giving relocation allowances and the children education allowances to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. You will note down things like, whatever you want to give, you will note down. But if in case you say, hey, I'm not giving, it's a policy, right?
Yeah, okay. See, both are mentioned
Like
in the
for
policy.
example, like deputation allowance. Say for
Yeah.
example, you are officiating for a higher level for certain amount of time. You get a deputation allowance.
Yes.
Or maybe in a bank, a teller allowance. You're doing it for 3 months, then somebody else comes. So for anything, so just look at it. I gave you a very interesting example of an accountant and driver. If you are doing, if it is your own job, you don't get it. But if you are doing something over and above, whether it is hardship, whether it is extra hours, etc., something more you are doing, you need to get a hardship allowance. Okay, that's a variable allowance. Got
Ma'am,
it?
I would like to add something. I would like to add
Yeah.
something.
Sure,
In my
sure.
current organization as well, we pay hardship allowances at certain roles, but it is not mentioned for certain roles. So this can be company policy. What I want to say that company may have this kind of policy that certain jobs at lower roles, if they get transferred from one location to another, and that destination location has been identified as some hardship location, people will get some hardship allowance. But
Right.
people at higher level will not get it. So it is a part of policy.
You have taken it as a policy. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Now, next comes in the variable pay. We also talk about merit pay. Okay. Now, merit pay are of two kinds. One is for cross skills. In fact, in today's times, there's a lot of work going on for this. Cross skills. Somebody was talking about skills. Say, for example, you are recruiting in an automobile organization. Say Volkswagen does this. A fitter. Okay. Now, in the appointment order, you are saying, hey, if you actually certify yourself, go to institute, learn, become a welder, and then you get a certification, then you can come to the L&D department, say you've been certified, and our department will also certify you, and then you will get an extra increment, extra incentive for cross skill. For example, in an IT organization, you will look at certain kind of IT technologies and somebody has X. So they will say, hey, if you actually get yourself certified in these two, you'll get additional incentives. Why do you think organizations do that?
That's a technical skill which is going to help out the organization.
That's one. Two, whenever there is an employee turnover, what can you do? You can rotate the person, right? You can put the person, when there is a turnover, you don't have to actually then suffer your productivity or so in the absence of people. Absenteeism can take care of absenteeism turnover. Now, let me give you a very interesting example of Volkswagen. So when they do this, what happens is suddenly the welder is in demand. Okay, and he comes at a higher cost. So they shift these people because they know that they're studying the pattern. So the fitters are then shifted to welders. They keep recruiting fitters. They create a talent pipeline so that they don't have to incur higher costs in buying talent from the market. Are you with me? They're trying to create a talent pipeline so that they don't have to buy from the market. Most of the IT organizations, what do? They know in their pipeline, talking to the business, that what kind of projects are coming, what kind of skill sets are required for those projects. So what happens? They then utilize the bench staff in order to train them, in order to create a talent pipeline, so that at any point of time, they are not in shortage of their skill sets, and they have to get sucked into this, demand and supply, where when there is a huge demand for a certain skill set, then the wage cost spirals up. Are you with me, guys? So you need to understand, hey, what are those skills? If you are a competent expert, if you are HR person, so you have to understand what are those skills which are required, and do I have sufficient, in the talent pipeline? Typically, it is also called a word which is used by all: capital human capital readiness. So I need to look at my inventory of what are the kind of skill sets required, and then can I then create a talent pipeline, ensuring that at any point of time I am in the green circle. Okay, okay, guys. Okay. Then you also have that's called cross skills. You also have upskilling. What is this upskill? Let me give you an example. What does the Citibank do? Say, for example, they have these accountants who's a BCom guy. They create something called a career advancement plan. Okay. How do I retain my best accountants, BCom guys? I'll say, hey, in this 3 years or 5 years, you should, if you certify yourself with the CAIIB 1, you get an additional incentive. Then, CAIB 2, you get another additional incentives. Then by the time, then you get a promotion to become a manager. So they are creating something called a career advancement plan. Then what happens? You are able to retain your high performers. Are you getting me? You are able to retain your high performers. You don't want to lose them. So you are creating an advancement. You are not saying, hey, after 5 years only, I'm going to give you. No, at every 2 years and 3 years, you are also giving them incentives when they are getting certified. Likewise, you are creating advancement, whether to become a chartered accountant or whether to be a banking, in a banking industry, you want all your people, irrespective of whether different functions, to have banking certifications. Why? You are able to then service your clients better. You can speak the same kind of a language. Okay. Are you with me, guys? That you also have something called cross-skilling and upskilling. Arjun, you have a question? Okay. Anybody else? We can proceed. So there's another variable pay which we talk about is market linked I'm sorry. Have you heard of this word called market linked retention bonus? Have you heard of this market linked retention bonus, guys? Yes, no?
No.
Heard of retention bonus, but not market linked.
Yeah.
Retention bonus. Any IT people? IT?
No, actually, market linked retention bonus, I haven't heard.
So what happens typically, if you know that in today's times, it's all evolving and it's all
Also,
knowledge and
sorry,
yeah.
I don't know actually the retention bonus also. As somebody's put the things, I would like to know about this
Okay, we'll
also.
talk about it. We'll talk definitely. So what is this MLRI? MLRI, we call it as incentive or a bonus. Typically what happens in any, whether today, in fact, for those unique skill sets, there's a huge demand. So what happens every year, the IT organizations also do something called the market intelligence survey report. Okay. So through which they know that, the kind of skill sets they are using, certain skill sets, suddenly a lot of mom and pop shops are coming up, etc. So what happens then? Do they actually start training people or will they poach by giving 2 times the salary? Huh? Let me give you an example. I was a senior vice president for Apollo Health Street, and we had a very good, very big vertical medical coding business. I'm sure some of you, if you are in the healthcare business, you will understand. Medical coding business essentially is a very high profit margin business where you are getting business from outside, US, etc. Where it gets digitized, the photographs, and you're coding them. So there is somebody who's providing the health services. They give you the digitized photographs, and the payer is the insurance, provider is the healthcare. Okay. So the payer does not pay money unless and until it is certified and say, hey, yes, you need to pay for this. Huh? So this is called medical coding. You do coding of this disease. Now, what happened? Because it's a highly profitable business, a lot of mom and pop shops come up. When you're a startup, will you start actually training up people, bringing people, or will you actually get people with experience when you're a startup? 60 to 70% of your workforce is typically, because you want to establish your business quickly, set up process, etc. You don't mind paying 2 to 3 times the salary. So obviously they will look at people who are all well trained and who are doing very well. So what happens likewise? So IT companies or even other businesses, typically they do market intelligence in terms of, hey, what kind of businesses are coming? Are they going to use our skill sets? So when they are using your skill set, what will happen? They will pay higher salaries. So suddenly there will be a lot of resignations going in. So people will go and join those organizations which are paying 2 to 3 times the salary. Now, in order to reduce your attrition, becoming cognizant of the fact that, hey, there's going to be a sudden demand for the skill sets you are using, you have to identify them and give some kind of a variable bonus, not factor it in your base salary, but yes, for 1 year or 2 years. Because typically what happens, the demand will be there for a short period. After that, as you know, AI, as you know, cloud computing, it will be for a short period. After that, what happens? Because of the number of training, this supply will become there. So for 1 or 2 years or 3 years, whatever, so you want to give them a retention bonus because you don't want to actually suffer your business gets impacted. So to stop them from going, so you will recognize the fact and give them what? A retention bonus for only for that set off, only for that period. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years. Okay. So this is called market linked retention bonus. Is it clear, guys? Just give me a thumbs up. Give you an example. Say, for example, let me first of all explain to you what is market linked bonus, retention bonus, and tell you what organizations actually do, right? So, say for example, I actually recruit a lot of Java skill sets. Okay, simple. I'm giving you an example. I recruit a lot of because I am in the requirement of a lot of Java, maybe cloud computing or AI. Now, I see that this year there are a lot of startups or businesses coming in who will recruit these skill sets. Then what will happen? That means there's sudden demand for these skill sets. But this sudden demand is not going to be there forever. It's going to be there for a year or 2 years or 3 years. So what happens then? People, because there is a demand, you will be paying higher salaries, the person who just startup. So if you are using those skill sets, then people will actually exit from your system and go and join other organizations. Why? Like, for example, somebody said, no, in the beginning of the session that, because some other company is paying higher salary, I will prefer to go to that organization. Got it? But I have to recognize the fact that, hey, there's a sudden demand for this skill set and I can't afford to lose them. So what will I do? I will give them a retention bonus, maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years, whoever is actually having that skill set. Have you understood, Mahendra?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen retention bonus, but the market linked is something which is new for me, and it's
Yeah,
good.
in
It's
some of
good. It
the
should be
organizations they
implemented,
do.
right?
Some of the organizations do. But now, having said that, now what had happened initially, all the IT organizations would do that because what happens, you know how IT is, market is very fluid, dynamic. So then they realize that, hey, in TCS, Wipro, Infosys, these large IT organizations, so people with other skill sets said, what do you mean? If this guy is getting a market-linked nutrition bonus because he has the skill, are you saying that the skill sets we have are not very critical and so therefore we can't get additional bonus? So they scrap this. Market-linked nutrition bonus. So what they started doing is to ensure that there is human capital readiness, they have aligned their what? Training of bench strength with the future projects which are there in their pipeline so that they are never caught. Because in the IT organization, employees who are on the bench strength, they do not get variable pay. Do you know that? I hope all of you know. Huh? People who are on the bench, only when they are working, they get variable pay. So therefore, they're all the time, people immediately when they're on the bench, they're actually looking out for jobs because, they don't get their variable pay. So obviously they're getting less salary. And so they would like to jump out. Now, how do you retain? So you retain them by giving them what? Training in those critical technologies, etc., which are there in the pipeline. So they have continuously built-in talent pipeline where every time there's a bench strength, they are actually setting up, these people for further critical skill gradation. So therefore, only the mom and pop shops where they have, they can't rotate people, they can't afford to have bench strength. That's where they pay these market linked retention bonus. Are you able to get the essence of it? What I told you, that large IT organizations, they do not give these bonuses because they had a conflict in terms of the others trying to see or perceive that their skill sets are not unique, and so there was a conflict, so they stopped giving market linked retention bonus and ensured that they align their bench strength training with those skill sets or technologies which are there in the pipeline required by the projects. Whereas smaller organizations where you really can't have any bench strength, they're all the time rotating them with projects. Then when there is this demand for certain skill sets, so they are left but to give this market link retention bonus. Are you very clear now? I have given you two scenarios where some organizations do it and some organizations don't do it. And why they don't do it, I've also given you the reasons for these large IT organizations who don't give MLRI, but the smaller organizations looking at the demand for certain skill sets, they actually give market linked. So market linked retention bonus is linked with the demand for those skill sets. Are you with me, Vegender? Now have you understood? No, Mahendra.
Yes, so
Hey
I
guys,
can
just
say
give me
it's
a pardon?
yeah, it looks like, can I say this is IT industry specific strategy, retention strategy?
Yeah, it is a specific retention strategy. Yeah. So we talked about hardships, we talked about merit pay for extra skills, we talked about merit pay for market link skills, merit and retention and hard skills. Okay. So why do you give variable pay? It is all to what? Motivate the high performer. Then in your direct pay, there is something called deferred pay. What is deferred pay?
Deferred means to be given
If
at
an
a later
employee
point in time.
Later. So why do you defer it? Why do you want to give it later? What will happen to Komal if I tell her, okay, you will get 10,000 rupees, but I'll give you right now 2,000, and then later on, after 2 years, I'll give you 5,000, and then after 2 years, I'll give you the rest of the money. What will Komal do?
He's getting
Employee
retained for that
retention.
long.
She will retain. She'll be retained.
Got it. Got it. So now have you understood deferred pay? Huh? You will stay back because, hey, you're going to get that money, right? So base pay is for fixed, attracting. Variable pay is to motivate. Deferred pay. So what do organizations do? Like for example, joining bonuses. It's also one-time bonus, a one-time money you get it. Now you also get retention bonus, right? Anybody who's getting retention bonus or you have planned retention bonus. So whom will you give retention bonuses typically in organizations?
The skills which are likely in your perception that they might move out.
Yeah, some
Okay.
roles we will identify
Okay.
those which we think that
Some
okay,
roles.
there are some kind of niche roles, and we should add
Uh-huh.
some retention bonus or retention pay in their salary component so that they will be retained, say, over for a couple of years with us
Say
at
for
least.
example, I will say, hey, the site engineer, I have a site engineer who has done everything he has to, and that the project has to be completed in say 2 years time or so. So I will say, hey, so do you think it is justified to to put him on a retention bonus?
Yes,
Obviously,
so
na? Critical position. If he goes away, then my entire project will come to a standstill. So I have to ensure, no? Likewise, say for example, you have some critical positions who are working on projects, or you have certain positions which you say till the time I actually shadow him with some kind of another successor, I will definitely need him. Okay, so
Yes.
retention bonuses are not given to everybody. It is given based on your importance, unique positions, criticality, projects, etc. you give. So retention bonus means it is spread over for the time you want him to be retained. Right? You have a very high critical position. It could be at a lower level also. It could be a very strategic position. Okay. So till the time your successor is trained, will say, hey, he will need at least that much time. So you will have to retain this guy at least for 3 years or maybe 5 years. Got it? That's called retention bonus.
One
Then
more thing, if I can add, is in manufacturing organizations, they give a retention bonus with a clause that if you leave after taking a retention bonus, till a period of 1 year, it will be recovered. So the person ends up staying 2 years rather than 1 year.
In fact, when you are hired, you'll get a sign-on bonus also. And then you will say, if you leave within particular
1
time,
year,
you have
I'll
to please
recover.
pay everything. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So you have to. It doesn't come off like, no freebies. Huh?
Right.
Now, what about stocks?
Is
Why
stocks
do you
different
offer
from
stocks?
ESOPs, ma'am? Is stocks different from
ESOPs, yeah.
ESOPs?
So if you are talking, we will talk about it in the fourth session. But here I'm just wanting to mention ESOPs. Why do you offer them? Because you'll say, hey, you want him to stay on, but can you actually, there's a vesting period when you offer that letter, right? Huh? Like, for example, I'll say, Hema, she's a very good worker. And I will say, oh, she's excellent. So I'll give you a letter saying that, I'm going to give you 1,000 shares of this company at this market rate, at this. Okay. But then when can she can use them or buy them? Only after 2 years. So there is a vesting period after which maybe only 50% you can do. So the essence is that you want that Hema to stay on for that much of time, right? You want to retain. But today, earlier on, these stocks, etc., were given to only top level people. But today, it is across all level people, because essentially what the organizations are believing, that they are more like HR, they're partners in business. So if you drive their performance through these variable pays and stock, they're able to produce more and the organization makes more. So if you notice, even startups are offering stocks. They say, hey, if you are going to really work very hard, you can actually increase the share price of this, and then you will get so much of money. Okay. What is annuity plans? Quick, guys.
Annuity plans are pension plans. So
annuity plan is like a pension plan, but here the benefit is, I told you, when you're designing your compensation, we have to know the element. Now, this is offered to people who are actually at a middle level or top level, who are drawing higher salaries, essentially to ensure that, their tax, it reduces the tax deduction. The amount of tax you need to pay, that is actually set off, and you say, hey, you can offer it as an annuity plan, where instead of getting it deducted as tax, you save it. Then the company then it's a company, it's like a superannuation plan. Then the company, what will it do? It will invest it in an LIC. And after you leave the company, then you can actually get it, or even after retirement. So there's more of a saving. And rather than getting it deducted as tax, you're saving it. Okay, that's called a annuity plan. I will send you a copy of an annuity plan. And if anybody is actually devising such schemes, you can have a good idea of that. All right.
Okay. Can you just give me one example? I think it's a good one where I can just anyone put the things in a structure to save tax
I will
savings.
send you a format for that. I will send you an annuity plan. But to give you a little sense of it, it is not offered as an individual. So the finance department, along with the HR, they will say, hey, no, we are offering an annuity plan, and it is offered to this middle or the top level people, and say, do you want to actually take the advantage of it? So it will be offered to 50, it will be offered. So whoever wants to opt for it. So it is an organization's initiative. It is not an individual's initiative like a Mahendra Kumar or a Avinash. No, it is a organization's initiative. So it actually then, instead of the tax getting deducted, it will ensure that this amount which is there set off as tax will invested. But of course, when you take the return later on, there is some amount of tax you have to pay. Just like, any bonus, etc., you have to pay tax. Okay. And definitely, whoever it was, I will send you to everybody this annuity plan. And if you have any kind of, when you're designing this plan, if you have any doubts, you can always reach out to me. Okay, guys. So quickly we will go. So you have understood base pay, variable pay, deferred pay. Now,
Ma'am,
base pay, yeah, yeah.
one point I wanted to add. In our company, we do follow retention bonus. For that also, we will paying 12% interest per annum.
Retention bonus, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
for
And you are
retention
paying,
bonus. No, I
uh,
am sharing our practice. If
uh,
example 50,000 per a person, we have mentioned as a retention bonus per annum. For that, we will
per
be
annum.
giving that.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
So for
no,
that
no,
will
no.
be locked for
See,
next 3 years, but we will
uh,
be giving 12% interest on that. That is an additional motivation for employee to accept that.
my God, that's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So
I
that's a
just want to
company's
share with
policy,
all
if
of
you are
you.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Practice.
company's policy saying that, hey, we are also going to. So I don't know if it is given to everybody, because typically what happens, retention
No, this
bonuses
is
are
for a
given.
critical roles only, not for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. For example, if Arjun, I think was Arjun, so he works for that company where a lot of them are scientists. So they might, scientists are very, very important for a pharma company, right? So what will they do? The Arjun, I mean, so they will definitely have retention bonuses, because scientists are very, very critical there, and they want them to stay at least for 5 years, no long period, because you can't actually do research by staying for 1 year or 2 years. So you want, because there are certain milestones and you don't want him to leave. So you will notice that they will be, apart from a high base salary, they will also be on a high retention. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can I move on, guys? Base pay is essentially for attraction, variable pay for motivation, and deferred pay is for what? Retention. Okay. Now, if so, now the other is the indirect pay, which is called the non-monetary. Direct pay is all the monetary. When you talk about the non-monetary, you typically talk about all the benefits, the protection programs, pay for time not worked, all the services and perquisites. Now, if you look at this, if you are able to see this slide very well, now under protection programs also you have something called mandatory. Every organization has to comply, which is about what? The provident fund, the gratuity, the medical insurance. Over and above you can give, but that is something minimum you have to give. The ESI, applicability, etc. Over and above people are giving. And in fact, after COVID, I think the medical, the kind of medical benefits which have increased is humongous. Okay. Then again, when we are talking about pay for time not worked, you know that what is mandatory you have to give: maternity, for earned leaves, etc. But over and above, then organizations are giving, like say Google will give uh, sabbatical leave, go for 3 weeks, etc. Because you worked on a very, project which was very, very strenuous for you, or they give vacations, paid vacations, etc. Over and above, you can do anything. We'll talk about it under total reward scheme. Again, it's, perks and benefits. Like say, for example, today in organizations, you have huge benefits, right from employee wellness to financial planning to low cost free meals, no, subsidized meals, furnished houses, recreations, etc. So you have various things. Now, when we are talking about, I'll just be coming to that total rewards. So when I talk about a pay mix, what is a pay mix? Pay mix is the combination, the percentage of a direct pay, the base pay, the variable pay, and what kind of components are you going to have in a indirect pay. That's called the pay mix. Now, the pay mix is also dependent on the kind of strategy. Say, for example, my strategy, compensation strategy, my strategy is high retention. What will I do? What kind of a mix will I have? High retention. Quick, guys.
Higher
Set the
deferred
context
pay,
for you.
higher
Huh?
deferred pays, higher deferred pays.
Higher deferred pays, more benefits, right?
Yes.
And start looking at people. For example, I was just reading somewhere, some organization. I found it very interesting. They ensure when people come, they ensure that they marry. Why do you think so? I was kind of, Essentially, they look at young workforce, but ensure that they are married. Why do you think so?
Mobility of labor is less when you're married.
You're right. Huh, you're right. Because so they ensure that they're married, they have children, they'll say, so their benefits, etc., are around that. You know, so people who are married and who have children, so find it difficult to see an unmarried girl say, if I'm getting a job, a higher salary, I'll push off anywhere. But the wife will say, hey, if you have a wife and child, say, no, this location, etc., etc. Right? Say, for example, there was this company, IT company, which said we give a family kind of a culture in the sense for dependents, for elderly people. Look, what is it? Care, nurse coming home, etc. So when you are building your benefits as per your strategy. So I want people to be retained because my organization is such that I actually have need for high skill sets and I cannot actually have them, what is it, attriting so often. So ensuring that people are retained, I will have those kind of a benefits aligned. But if I want a high performance strategy, what kind of a salary will I have? Components will I focus on? High performance strategy.
Higher variable pay.
Variable pay.
I
Base
will
plus
have more
variable.
variable pay
Yeah.
because people are looking at, because if I increase my base salary, what will happen?
Whether you
Will that
work or
assure you
not, you get it.
performance? Will that assure you performance? No, because they're very
No.
comfortable, right? That's not going to assure you performance. So you have to have a high variable pay.
Will be-
We'll talk more on that in a little while. Okay. But hey, have you guys understood the entire components of a compensation system? Huh? Okay. Okay. So what we actually looked at, before we took a break, is we looked at the external factors which impact compensation. More importantly, the government regulations, the union negotiations, and globalization and technology, etc. And thereafter, we looked at components of a compensation system, which are very, very important for get the right mix. Now, most of the time you talk about in organizations rewards. When we talk about rewards, so what do we mean by them? We mean by the sum total of both monetary and non-monetary. But you must have heard something very, very common these days, even for a compensation COE, you call it as total rewards. Isn't that so? Huh? Today, what do you call them? As total rewards. Is there a difference between when you say total rewards and just compensation benefits? Yeah, please attempt. Quick. When we talk about total rewards, is there a difference? Is there anything differentiating between when we say, hey, our total reward strategy as opposed to our compensation strategy? Is there a difference?
Yeah, these are different. To me,
Huh.
total rewards also includes uh, awards,
Rewards are
monthly or
something which employees will get additionally other than the compensation.
Okay.
So
Anybody else?
total
One more
rewards
person
also
would like to take.
total rewards also includes all the benefits and say leave encashments or paid leaves,
Okay.
learning
All right.
opportunities, developmental opportunities, flexibility of work, or also
All right.
work-life balance in
Interesting.
terms of taking care of the family,
Nice.
going with the employee. So
Yeah,
these are
very
all
interesting. Okay. So I want you all to understand this very well because today, if you say you are a compensation benefit, you really need to understand this total rewards concept. Okay. And a lot of research has been done. And one of the most important bodies, which is called the American Compensation Association, which has become World at Work. Some of you must have heard about it. So they have actually coined this the total rewards. Okay. And when we talk about, just think about it, total rewards, that means from the time an employee enters the organization till the time it exists, the entire employment relationship everything we do, invest in him, whether it is salary, whether it is benefit, whether it is development, whether it is training, whether it's performance. Everything what we do in this relationship is called total reward. Are you with me? Total reward for what he gives. For the time, for the skill, for the effort, for everything what he gives in this employment relationship. Okay, so when we talk about total rewards, so it includes 5 key elements. What are those 5 key elements? They are compensation, which includes what? Fixed salary and variable pay. Then benefits. Then work-life balance. Then performance management, recognition, everything you do in that area of performance and recognition. And then development and career opportunities. That is, what are you investing in? What kind of a development are you giving to increase his, upgrade his skills? What are the career advancements, etc. So there are 5 key elements which, as per the World at Work, says, hey, as per the total reward strategy, that an organization needs to do in all these areas. Now, let me just explain to you, even if you look at this model, World at Work says that if organization actually, to actually achieve the business results, you need to have a very highly satisfied and engaged employees. And when can you have them? By attracting and motivating and retaining such people. And how can you do that? Only by working on this in the context of what? Human resource strategy, business strategy, and organization culture. This is the context in which these elements have to be worked on. And it shows like a globe. That means every organization has an external influence we talked about, right? It could have a dynamic market, the competition, the influences it has, regulations, etc. Now just look at this. Okay, so these are the 5 elements. Now when you look at these 5 elements, every element has certain things. I'm not getting into really deep down, but I'm just touching upon the surface, but there is sufficient reading material for you all to do. Now, when we look at those elements, compensation means you're talking about base salaries, variable pays, etc., etc. Then benefits, you're talking about all the kind of benefits, whether it's healthcare, whether it is, employee satisfaction, flexible benefits, work-life balances. You're talking about career development, recognition. Interesting total reward concept. It says that, to leverage, a total reward strategy means you want to leverage all these 5 elements. Now, when you're talking about these 5 elements, these are the various things you need to do. Like, for example, essentially it says you want to actually, when you use this, it's a kind of an exchange relationship. You are giving something which the employee values and you are getting something. Okay. So when you work on these elements, these are the various things, compensation. I'm sending you this document as well. The benefits, now the work-life balances, list of things, work-life, performance recognitions. Okay, since we don't have much time, I'm just rushing through development opportunities. Now, when organizations are looking at this model, the most important thing for you all we talk about is they don't work in silos. You're not looking at compensation and which is compensation variable in silo, means in isolation. You are not looking at work-life balance in isolation. You're not looking at just benefits in isolation. Okay? Gone are the days when they would do that. Oh, what benefit? You have to look at them in an integrated way. Are you with me, guys? You have to look at all of them in an integrated way. Why? Because it's only then that you are able to give value to the employee. For example, my compensation strategy is retention. So maybe in a component benefit that's fixed pay and variable pay, I have a certain mix, okay, in where I'm going to spend more on benefits because benefits cost, right? So because I'm having a high retention strategy, I'll focus on benefits, I'll focus on work-life balances, maybe I'll focus on more of performance and recognition. So I will have my elements integrated. But when you work in silos, they will not add to your goal. Are you with me, guys? So this total reward strategy today, organizations, why are they coming to this? Why are they saying total reward strategy? Because they're saying we're spending money just by increasing because I'm having I'm wanting to retain people, but I'm having huge attrition. So I will increase the salary. Okay, this year you have increased it. Then again next year, but by just increasing the salary, you are not going to reduce attrition. Because what? That is not, that's a hygiene factor. It's not going to motivate him. So there is something else. What do you need? So you need to understand. So when you do it as a total reward strategy, like for example, Infosys, what is their compensation strategy? Their salary, they do not pay more than 65th percentile. As a general, 65th percentile means I don't pay the top end salary like Google. Okay. But what are the kind of benefits they give? They're saying, hey, I'll invest in you, ensure that you have lot of certifications. I'll invest in you, ensuring that, so when they're taking 80% of your workforce is at an entry level and they want to actually build the buy build strategy of your talent, they're building their talent. So they're wanting to train more people. So they are saying that is their benefit. That is their branding, employer branding. So I'm investing in that. Maybe somebody who's a mom and pop shop, I will say, I want trained people I'll pick up from the market. I'm not the building kinds, I'm just the buying kind. So maybe in the compensation, he'll give high variable pay. So it's an integrated approach. The total reward strategy is nothing but having all these 5 elements. And as I said, I said they're in the context of what of the culture, in the context of your business strategy, and in the context of what, if you see in this model, just look at this model. In the context of strategy, means what is your business strategy, and within that culture and your human resource strategy. In this context, you are working with an integrated model so that you are able to achieve business results. Okay. So why again in the context of organization culture becomes very, very important, right? Okay, we'll talk a little more about it in another session on culture because it needs a little more touching. So when you align your human resource strategy with the business strategy, and if you can see there's a globe, this is, what does it say? That there is this, what external factor of what the competitive market, the regulations, the external influence, regulations, etc. Within that, how do you actually, in the context of these things, how do you do the architecture of these 5 elements in such a way that you are able to attract, motivate, and retain your employees, the right kind of people, so that they are highly satisfied, engaged. And if they are highly satisfied, engaged, you will get business results. Okay. So like, for example, I've given a list of items in compensation. Okay. Benefits, work life, list of things, what you can do, what organization can do. In fact, I sent you a document. I sent you this document. Okay. You can actually tick, hey, what is my organization doing? Now, are they doing it in isolation, or is there any kind of integration? If they're giving an essential benefit, how does it impact the other things? Are you with me? Because benefit means a cost. So is there an integration? And so does it help in any way? So right now, since we don't have much time, you can always go back and do a checklist of what are the various things you're doing in all those 5 elements, and are they in an integrated way or they are in isolation? Got it, guys? Okay. All right. So if time permits, I'll make you do a small exercise, but I want to finish another module, which is very important because this is going to set the context for all the other 3 sessions for us. Okay. Very important because this is going to set us. There's something called equity theory. When we say compensation, all organizations strive to become equitable or fair. Okay. Huh? So when we say equity is fairness. So what is equity? Equity is nothing but, it's based on input and simple. According to Adam Smith, who was a psychologist, philosopher, he said, employees are motivated, engaged to do work when they see that their inputs are equal to output. Got it? What? When will Meghna Sawant be motivated, engaged? When she sees her input is equal to output. Now let us see what is this input and output. What is input? Input is employee's contribution. What do? You give your time, you bring your competencies, you give your skills, everything. All these things are your input. And what is output? What does the organization give you in terms of rewards, right? It can give you what? Monetarily cash, non-monetarily some kind of a reward. So very clear what is input and output, guys. Okay. So when input is equal to output, you are satisfied, you are happy, you are engaged. But so just to re-emphasize, input, output. What is input? Your experience, education, special skills, everything. What is output? Your pay, your benefits, whatever you get. But if this balance is not, then if it is like this, say for example, so before we go to that. So if, let me give, if this is equal, you are happy. But when will I know that it is not equal? How will I know? Tell me. That is interesting. So when will I know input is equal to output? Anybody who has got the right logic. I told you that according to the equity theory, input should be equal to output. I am very much engaged, motivated, etc. But how will I know it is equal? Input is equal to output?
From an employee perspective, when the employee feels that whatever input I'm bringing in to the organization in terms of my skill, effort, time, I'm being paid fairly towards that. And for an employer perspective, employer would see that whatever cost to the company in terms of everything, in terms of salary, benefits, work life.
Okay. I will ask simple question. I'll ask a simple question to Meghna Sawant. Are you there, Meghna?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask Meghna saying that is your input, do you feel that your input is equal to output?
Currently, yes.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Because the results that have been given by me, and if I compare it with somebody else, I know that I am paid better than that, equivalent to my result.
So I will only use that word, compare.
Yes.
That's the most important word. I will know input is equal to output only when I compare. So how will I compare? I will compare. I will compare with somebody who's in the organization, within the organization. Okay. Like for example, if Komal is an HR manager, hey, I'm getting X amount of salary for the effort, for the input I'm giving. So if I compare it with the senior manager whose input is equal to output, how is it? Is he getting paid more or less? I'll compare internally. Got it? I'll compare internally. So sometimes you say, no, I'm doing much more work and I'm getting such less salary. But that guy, no, his workload is so less, that job, but he is getting more salary. What did you do? You compared. You compared and said, huh? Only then you knew. Are you with me? Somebody else spoke in the initial stage. So you have to have that comparison, which is a number. You are comparing that my input, my so you are comparing my output to input. If it is equal to my comparator, now my comparator could be somebody from the same organization. It's called internal equity then. If it is some, so I will compare, I'm an HR manager and I'm saying, hey, my salary, it's much lesser than what they're paying in the market. What did you do? You are comparing HR manager's salary to what in the market. So that's called external equity. That means you are comparing your salary with the market, external market. Or when you are comparing, see, I'm doing so much of work. I'm a payroll clerk. That guy is also a payroll clerk. Okay. But I'm doing much more accounting, everything than that guy. But I'm getting the same salary. That's called individual equity. Are you getting me, guys? Please, because our entire thing is going to be built on this. So just look at this. First of all, when my output and input is equal to the person I'm comparing with, equal to, then what happens? There is equity, fairness, right? So when there is fairness, I'm happy, I'm motivated, I'm engaged. But my reward versus contribution is what? Lesser than other person's reward versus contribution, right? Then what will happen? There is inequity. When there is inequity, what will happen? I'll be demotivated. You tell me, what will you all do when you find that there is inequity? What will you do? Typically, human behavior. What will you do? Guys, quick. Very normal, no?
The employee will be dissatisfied and probably they would try to look out.
Now think about yourself whenever, like when you got lesser salary, during an annual increment and somebody else got more. What did you feel like? What happened?
I'll reduce
Your
my
colleague got
performance.
lesser salary, huh?
I'll reduce my performance. If the
You
company is not
reduce your performance.
yes, yes.
And not only you reduce performance, you'll ask for people are there. See, there is injustice. Reduce. No? And then you will form a gang and say, let us look for jobs. Let us all go out together only.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yes, yes.
Say, for example, if there are 500 people and 400 people are having this issue, they find it not fair, inequity, then what will happen to the productivity of the organization? Will it perform or will it go lower and lower?
It will be low.
It will go lower. But you are paying the same wage cost, fixed salary for everybody, guaranteed salary, and your percentage of wage cost doesn't increase. Remains the same, but the productivity is less. So what's happening? Company is losing out. So do you think now that compensation is really very critical? I'm coming back to my first question, which I asked you. Do you think compensation is very equitable? That is how compensation has to be equitable, and it has to be perceived also to be equitable. You know what the difference perceived? That means if Komal is working in an organization, I have to also perceive it. Hey, yes, there is fairness in the way I'm getting paid. No? Hey guys, are you with me now? Are you understanding why compensation is becoming very critical? Because it drives performance. If employees don't see fairness in the way you are paying, now how do they see fairness in the way you are paying? They're comparing. The biggest joke is when you say compensation, don't reveal your salary to people. It's confidential. That's the biggest joke. You agree? Once you are on board, everybody will know how much, who is getting what. No? Then you will say, hey, but you see, I'm doing the same job. Why is that person getting more than me? Okay. So when you are looking at that way, see, the person definitely will ask for a raise, or he will reduce the work contribution, or he will start looking at very rare cases, he will start working harder. If he sees inequity, he doesn't really. So last resort is quitting. So now do you think that compensation has to be fair and equitable? and also has to be perceived. That means communication also has to be done that, hey, these are the grades, these are the ranges, this is our recruitment policy, this is how we actually compensate. Then the perception increases. Okay. But when somebody perceives that I'm getting more than the other person whom he compares, it happens, what happens? That fellow will start staying back, works very hard. He will try to justify that. That situation is also there, no? He will justify. Or do you know what happens sometimes? The fellow who gets more and says, hey, to others, don't work very hard, Like, for example,
It motivates others.
Does he motivate?
It does. I mean, if I
Sometimes.
perform,
But
yeah, I
if
mean,
somebody else is feeling that he is not being fairly paid, do you think this fellow can go and motivate that fellow? Huh? He will say, you got more, yeah. Huh? You don't deserve it. You agree? Have you
it does
noticed
happen
many a
like that.
times during the annual increment cycle, because many a times whenever I was the HR head, they would come and say, the business has given this rank. Why did I get this much lesser salary? Why did he get more increment? Why did I get less increment? Right?
Yes.
So at the end of it, what is very, very important? I told you, equity. And how do you know that whether it is equitable or fair? You are comparing. And comparing with what? You are comparing your reward with your input with a comparator. And who are the comparators? It could be somebody within your organization or guys, tell me. Somebody
outside the
you're
organization.
comparing with the market or
benchmarking.
with the two individuals. Okay. So that is where I said internal equity, external equity. Internal equity is comparing what you get vis-a-vis the other jobs in the organization. Vis-a-vis, because sometimes I'm sure you have noticed, hey, I'm a manager HR, but I think I'm doing the maximum work, and that senior manager HR, I think comparatively is getting much more salary. That means where internal equity is not there. That means we have not analyzed, evaluated the jobs for their work. There's so much of overlap of work that he's actually doing similar job, but for nothing at all, he's getting more. That's called internal equity. Now, how do we establish internal equity? I told you when we were doing components. Quick, how do we establish internal equity, guys? Huh? How do we ensure that people are getting, salaries, equitable salaries?
Through job evaluation.
Depending on job roles, paying as per the job role.
Job roles and the
Absolutely.
result expected, outcome expected.
So Avinash was talking about if my talent acquisition guy is getting 50,000 rupees, then if I add an incentive plan, it become more. Now you have to first of all assess the worth of that job, whoever it is, recruiter. Hey, now compared to market, what is my compensation pay policy? Am I wanting to make higher salary than the market, or as per the market, or lower than the market? It's a pay policy. Are you with me now, Avinash? We are going to do what? Evaluate the job. So when we do job evaluation in internal equity, first of all, say for example, there are 10 jobs. I'm giving a very small example. There are 10 jobs, okay, across all the functions. Now we will evaluate the worth of the jobs. And when we say evaluate the worth of the jobs through certain evaluation techniques, either it could be point method or grading method, etc., we are stacking them up, highest to lowest or lowest to highest. Okay. Then looking at market data, then we will actually then what? Say, hey, the worth of the job is this much and they are in this rank and we will be paying this kind of a base salary, which is a technique which we will do it in detail. And that's the next session we will be doing with hard data. Are you with me? Internal equity, you understood what is internal equity? What is external equity? That means when I am comparing my 10 jobs, benchmark jobs with the market, right? And am I paying less? Am I paying more? But why do I need to go to the market and look at the market? Essentially, organizations, why do they do that? Why do they do salary survey or benchmarking, etc.? Is it necessary? Please, why do you do benchmarking? Why do you do market salary survey? Why?
To
Anybody?
ensure that we pay competitively.
Huh?
We should pay, what are we paying vis-a-vis for the same job, vis-a-vis what another company is paying for the same job.
So say, for example, I will say, no, but I can afford only 10 rupees. I'll only pay this much. So why should I actually know what is in the market? What advantage am I getting to know?
To
Huh?
also understand the competitiveness of the pay policy the organization is having right now. Also,
Unless and until,
yeah,
exactly. Who is this?
also
Who
they
is
can,
this?
this is
Yeah,
Manish this side.
Manish. So unless and
Understand
until
for, yeah.
I compare myself, I will know where I'm standing. If I don't even compare, I may be paying actually more money, right? How will I know whether I'm paying more or less? Unless and until I compare it with the market. Sometimes I may be paying more also, no? How will I know? So it's very, very important to do what? Benchmarking, which is called external equity, so that you know exactly, you can then devise, strategize your pay policy of saying that this is what this I want to be like this. I want to be so competitive, compare with other organization. Why? Because ultimately you have to get your talent from the market. From where will you get your talent? You have to care. So you have to get your talent from the market, right? And if you are going to pitch your salary and you don't even know you're going to pay very low salaries, and what is the best indicator? Attrition, high attrition rate. And sometimes positions are not getting filled. 3 months, 6 months, position is not getting filled. That's a good indicator. You agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
We
Why?
do this compensation benchmarking, every year prior to the increments. Every year that's one exercise that we do it without fail. Market comparison.
Okay. Why?
In order to make informed decisions during the increment and also to see, wherever the corrections are required.
Absolutely.
At some levels, the people are above the, market level, that is your P90 or so. So that's where, then the promotion decisions are also based on that it's high time the person moves on to a different role or additional
Absolutely.
responsibilities. So all those decisions
Because
are based on this.
yeah, you can't take informed decisions unless and until you know what it is, then so that you are also able to give that much of annual increments, because there are so many things. You have actually taken people at a much lesser salary, and now market has actually gone up, and
Yeah.
and you are taking new people for the same jobs at a higher salary. So there is something called, what we call it as what, salary compressions. So how are you going to take note of that, right? So
Right.
all this can be done only when you have data and you have to do a market survey. All right. And also taking care of comp ratios, which we'll talk about when we deal with external equity. I'm sure most of you talked about comp ratios. We'll also
Comparisons,
talk
right.
about, comp ratios, and then, which is a huge challenge, in fact, right? And then at what comp ratios do you decide to take certain positions? How much of for a promotion, you also decide on what comp ratio you want to have, things like that. All right. Now, when we talk about individual equity, see, there is a difference. Individual, it is not internal. What does it mean? Individual equity means there are two people working in the same job. I told you there are two accountants working in the same job, two accountants doing the same work, job description is same. But one accountant has to look at 30 clients and the other guy is looking at only 10 clients, but the salary of both the people is the same. Now, how do you account for it now? What will you do? Will the guy who's doing 30, getting the same salary, be happy and motivated still?
No.
But it also depends on the value of the clients and whether they're HNIs.
Yeah.
I mean,
So considering that
or
all of that is equal, so there is an overload of work, right?
Yes.
yeah, in
So
that case, yes.
you need to give him something extra. So whenever we are talking about individual equity, that means either a person. So individual equity, what do we do? Either we do that through variable pay. That means I'm a guy who can perform much more. Like I'm a sales guy who can sell a lot. Okay. But there is no incentive for me. No, I'm also being paid the same base salary, and the other guy is also getting the same base salary. Then why should I sell more? I will also sell the minimum. So in an organization, so today, in fact, it's everywhere. Earlier, variable pay was not much. Today, why do you think variable pay has taken a huge stride? Every organization has incorporated, including public sector variable pay. Why? They want to drive performance. Otherwise, what happens? Hey, why should I perform here? I'm getting my salary, my base salary, no deductions, nothing, guaranteed salary. Because even the other guy, he doesn't perform and he also gets the same salary. So in order to ensure that your high performers, you motivate your high performers, so you need to actually give them something more. Now, have you noticed when you have a performance strategy, hey, this guy is getting more because he's working more, even the laggards will say, hey, I will also start working. Getting me?
Yes.
In fact, if you are trying to create a team reward, what happens? The guys who don't work, either they will shape up or they will ship out, because the guys who are high performers will ensure that they work, the other ones, or they'll say, hey, you get lost from our team because we are not able to make our incentive because of you. Have you noticed that many a times?
Yes.
Yes.
So these are the three types of equity where organizations have to actually establish. When you establish this, then people will be motivated, people will be retained, and you are able to attract the right kind of talent. Any questions, guys? Because from the next, these are all the concepts you have to be very clear, because we'll be dealing with a lot of technical things now, and you will be actually working on hard data. So this you need to be very clear about. Okay. Any questions? Look at this table, components, indirect pay and direct pay. What I want you to do is in these two groups, take any two organizations, okay? And in an Excel sheet, what I want you all to write is, what kind of base pay? Nothing much. Normally, people will have just fixed pay. And then variable pay, what kind of variable pay you have and what kind of a deferred pay, all right? And one or two very unique benefits, etc. And then write whether you have a high performance strategy or whether it is a high retention strategy. And look at your pay mix and write that what is it? It's a retention strategy or a high performance strategy. What you need to do in an Excel sheet, okay, take two organizations, any two organizations in that group, and what is that you pay as a part of variable pay? What are the things you have? Don't get into details. You can just mention the name variable pays, what kind of variable pays you have, what kind of a deferred pays you have. Base pay, of course, is guaranteed pay. Nobody has anything else different. And then what kind of protection programs, not statutory, anything out of it, you can put them in line. Indirect pay, what are the benefits you have? And then right there, is it a retention strategy or a performance strategy? Is it clear? You will take
Yes.
at best 5 minutes or 10 minutes. How much time? Let us see. How much time? 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Done. So, yeah. Who is presenting here?
So we have taken examples of two organizations. One is
Okay.
Veolia Water, another is Gera. Veolia is mine organization. So
Okay.
what Veolia do? Veolia is into waste water and waste management organization. So it's a regulatory requirement, as well as now that people have become ethically aware that the industrial waste cannot be left open in the environment. And as per the government regulation also, they need to treat it. So we are almost market leaders in this. So being a niche industry, we don't have a problem of that people, churn out is not too much that people are, coming and going. So we don't have much problem in terms of attracting talent, because there are few very niche profile that we hire, like chemical engineers, some mechanical engineers, and some people who electrical engineers. So some people who are already working in water and water waste industry, they would like to come to work for Veolia because it is one of the market leaders. So our strategy of pay is also in aligned with that we don't have too many variable pay to drive performance. We do have or we do want to focus on how to keep the talent motivated and how to retain them. So to motivate talent, we have some variable pay in place, like PLB is there, and deferred pay in terms of annual AIP is there, that is being paid to them every year in the month of April. In our setup, we are in servicing, also we are into manufacturing. So we have factories where we also manufacture the stuff, that is the filters that we sell to other organizations which are in the same industry. So for the factory setup, we pay overtime also. So this is mainly in terms of the pay, variable pay and deferred pay. In terms of benefits, since we are a high, we want to retain and keep the employees motivated, we have a number of benefits. So starting from the common benefits of health insurance, GTL, GPA, we also have a very extensive OPD benefit, where almost all unlimited number of external OPD consultation is free. Also, the diagnostic test up to a capping of 1,000 rupees per test is free. Also, limited kind of sponsorship program is there for the relevant education. The education program, short term or long term, that is relevant to their work area. We have fitness policy in place where we reimburse up to a capping of say 1,000 rupees every month for any sports or gym membership. We also give them flexible work opportunities. We also, for managers and above, we have car lease program. We have reimbursement of crèche facility for all working mothers. So these are some some add-on, or say not very common practice among all the organizations when it comes to say OPD and dental benefits are there. Other organization that we talked about was GERA.
Yeah, just so if you've noticed this organization, there's some amount of branding around saying that, hey, we take care of your wellness, we take care of your health. So there are a lot of benefits over and above the statutory, which are there trying to create a good workforce which is very healthy. So if you see that, definitely there's a linkage of these benefits with the retention strategy, along with sponsorship of education fee. So if you have actually, for all the other participants, if you look at this benefit, their benefit strategy, definitely it reflects a very good retention strategy. All of you, are you looking at the kind of benefits which is not in isolation, like trade, but they are bundled up, right? Okay. Yeah. Let us now look at GERA.
Yeah. So GERA is a real estate organization. So being a property and real estate industry, it's a very
Is it into
competitive one.
construction and building?
Yes,
Construction and building?
Manish,
Yes.
Okay.
Manish, I'll take it on. Yeah,
Yes,
thank
Yeah,
you so
go over
much.
it.
Yes, Meghna, please.
Yes.
Please.
So GERA, I mean, since we are into construction, the entire process is very time bound. Right from the time you upload those particular designs on the RERA website, there is a timeline which is committed over there to the customers, to the the authorities. And if we do not meet that timeline, there's a huge penalty that the developer has to pay, which is why each and every function has a turnaround time. Be it design delivery, or be it your hiring, or be it your approvals, be it the sales, there is a target for each and every person and a timely deadline of delivery is there. And which is why we have our performance incentives, which are across all the levels, be it any department. Then the revenue facing teams which are there, that is, the sales people, they have a sales incentive which is over and above the CTC which is defined. My CTC basically comprises of the base pay and the performance incentive, but every salesperson will also have a sales incentive which is over and above the CTC. Okay, and the targets which are given regularly across all the 12 months is different, and when the launch is there, that time it is different. Okay. Then we also have the project incentives which are applicable to the people who are constructing the project, like the construction people, the architects who are delivering the designs on ground when the structure is coming up. There are specific deadlines for that as well. And that basically helps us to achieve our deadlines, to see to it that we are not defaulting on the RERA Act deadlines which have been given to the authorities. And which is why it is necessary for us to, ensure that each and every team is also able to meet these timelines. And that's the reason these variable pays have been defined for the people. As part of the deferred pay, we have these retention bonus, which is applicable to, I wouldn't say specific, every year I have it, but these are two specific roles which are really very critical for the organizations and on case-to-case basis. But as a whole gamut of benefits for every employee, we have the health insurance, which is taking care of the employee and their family. Parental insurance also, I mean, part of it. The group term life is there. The accidental insurance is there. We've done tie-up with the leading hospitals in the city, in Pune, wherein the employees and their families can avail these discounts on the OPD consultations and the diagnosis, which happens. Every year as part of this annual health, as part of the health insurance bucket, we have the annual health checks done for all the people, which is employee as well as, certain discounts offered to the families. Along with that, we have these, in order to create a year-long fitness goal for the employees, we have the sports tie-up which are there. On the developmental aspect, we have the self-learning policy which is defined for all the employees, wherein if you're taking up a course which is, pertaining to your role, whatever fees you have been paid and you're able to deliver to that, you are reimbursed up to 95% of the fees that you have paid. Now, this policy is applicable to all, but for certain roles, that is, AVP and above, we do have sponsorship for the premium B school, management courses which are there. Since we are into real estate development, we have this employee housing scheme created for all the employees to help the employees create a well-being also, which is a discount of up to 15% applicable to the employees, that they can invest in the properties which are being made by us. So interestingly, prior to launching the product in the market, we launch it internally for our employees. And the employees need not retain the unit. They can sell off once the possession has been taken at whatever is the market rate which is there. So this kind of helps them build their wealth. Flexi hours benefit, of course, is applicable to all. And, that is in terms of relaxation in their work hours or working from home, and then we have these leave encashment. Typically, your leave encashment is applicable when your separation is there, either on retirement or when the person is leaving the organization. But with us, once the earned leave, balance reaches up to 45, whatever is over and above that particular number, that will automatically get encashed the coming year. That's what we
So you
follow.
have a cap, not
Yeah.
wait till 6 months and then you go off on leave.
No.
6 months.
So yeah, so
Okay.
that's where we are. So the focus is more on performance, and we are further wanting to shift this to a much more high performing organization, which is why we are devising our whole compensation strategy, and in terms of making sure that we are able to show the growth of the employee vis-a-vis your delivery, make it so transparent with the communication goal. That's our current focus, which is there. So yeah.
So for you,
that's
excellent. In fact, I was just looking at the linkage in terms of, if you have noticed, what's your attrition rate?
I'm
across
currently
all
on.
levels. I know I'm not talking about top level or critical people, but
Yeah.
generally,
Overall,
on an average, what is it?
I am on an average currently. I am, across all the levels sitting on a 19%.
Let me ask you like this. According to the market, is it a high attrition or okay, average attrition, or what
It
is it?
is an okay attrition is what I can say, because even across my, competitors are also running at the same level.
Okay. Okay. So if you notice for the other groups also, for the other participants as well, if you see there's a very good linkage in terms of, the focus is definitely on retention and also for high performance, because everywhere there is time bound project incentives, etc. So if you notice, if you looked at the entire mix, the component mix, they're both high performance and also retention. A good mix. Yeah. Vilma has sent you this attachment, right? All of you must be having it in your mailbox. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it gives you a list of the components and elements under all the, 5 elements what we talked about: compensation, benefits, work life, etc. Now, what I want you all to do is, for your own organization, just tick them, checklist them as to under every element, what are the things you are doing. It has a very wide list of things. So you can actually pick them. And then analyze for yourself, are you doing this as an integrated model or are they in isolation? Okay. Then we can actually talk about it. I mean, when you come, or you can do it as an assignment and right there, Vilma will also talk about it, so that I want to actually help you to understand that when we are talking about a total rewards, this gives you an inventory of all the 5 elements. Now you can do your own checklist for your own organization, wherever you are working currently, and then see whether your organization is giving some of them or all of them or 60%, and whether there is any kind of a linkage or integration with these elements inventory. Okay, guys? Yeah. Any questions on this? Because this will become very important and help you all to understand the total reward strategy. Any questions before we close? And of course, Vilma will also give you the assignment to do. Any questions?
So, ma'am,
As of
I'm curious to know what are the ideal linkages for different strategies.
No, once you do this, we will get some data. We will not look at it hypothetically. Once you do it as assignment, then definitely I will talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. Then one more thing I must insist. The next session is highly technical. Can I request all of you to spend little time in the reading?
Sure.
Because otherwise it will sound like Greek and Latin and difficult to comprehend. So if you just go through it once, then it becomes much easier because it's highly technical. Okay, guys? All right.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Have a
Thank you,
nice
ma'am.
weekend and take care. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.